So in this Educanon video, I would like to review the first 5 lessons of Module 6 of Statistics. The first lesson was statistical versus non-statistical questions. And to go over that, I would love to use some Khan Academy questions, okay? Statistical questions are ones where you need statistics to answer them. You have to do some math. It can be graphed. Non-statistical questions usually tend to be closed questions where there's really only one answer. You couldn't graph it. No math is involved. So let's do a couple together. How much does Smarto the baby elephant weigh? I'm going to say that's not statistical. There's really only one answer about how much the baby weighs. No real math involved. Babies get unscaled. That's that. How many days are in June? Also not a statistical question. There's only one answer to that. How many pull-ups can sumo wrestlers do? Okay, well, there are probably tons of sumo wrestlers. You would have to do some sort of survey action question and do some data analysis. So I'm going to say that's statistical. You would need to do a graph. You could definitely graph that. How many hairs are there in Gretchen the gorilla's right armpit? Really funny. I like Khan Academy because it has a sense of humor. Not a statistical question because you could just count the armpit hair. Okay, next question. How many text messages have you sent today? Also not statistical, okay? You don't have to do anything. You can just count how many you sent. Okay, and that is statistical versus non-statistical questions, okay? The second thing we worked on was numerical and categorical data. Numerical data can be answered with a number. Categorical data, you have to categorize. So, for example, questions on favorite foods or favorite radio stations, those answers can be categorized. So that was lesson 1. Lesson 2 was on dot plots. Another name for it could be line plots, okay? So I did a dot plot here for you, okay, and let's talk about it together. Professor Preston compiled the scores from the last quiz. Use the data to complete the line plot below. So I started with circling the lowest number and going all the way to the highest, 5 to 10, and I counted by ones. I titled the scores and I gave it a title up here too. I went through and I crossed out every piece of data and I plotted it on the chart. So 5 has 2, 6 has 8, so on and so forth. Okay, but this is what we did for Unit 2. Now, the one thing I do want you to remember from this dot plot, we talked about the word range. Range is the maximum value minus the minimum. So in this case, the data ranges 5 points because the maximum is 10 and the minimum was 5. Just something I want to talk about while we're going through this. So then, lesson 3, we worked on histograms. And to talk about histograms, I'm actually going to go to the packet that we used today in class to review. Okay, and I would like you to go to the page that we didn't yet complete, and it's right here. And I would like you to actually try to complete this frequency table on your own. Based on the data above, I would like you to hit pause and hit play so you can check your answer. I'm going to hit pause, fill in the answer, and hit play to restart my video as well. If you did your frequency table correctly, okay, this is what the table should look like. Here are the matching tally marks and frequencies. Histograms are cool because they put the numerical data into categories, okay? And in this case, they wrote 20 is less than 25. Over here, I wrote 20 to 24. I would love you to take notes on this section and put meaning to these inequalities in your graph. 25 to less than 30 is actually 25 to 29. In tomorrow's class, we will be taking a look more at histograms and creating frequency tables from it and working together to practice this before your quiz on Thursday. So I'd like you to also pause your video, and on the bottom of the page, Part B asks you to draw a histogram of the age data from this. So I'd like you to try to do that on your own and then hit play to see if your histogram matches mine. If you did your histogram correctly, it should look something like this. And there's some things I just want to point out. Do you have a title? Are both of your X and Y axis labeled? and identified with a histogram, all graphs have an origin. Okay, this is quadrant 1, so this is origin. Every graph has to have a 0 at the origin. I put a break here because every other bar from the histogram is counting by 5s, really, and I don't have a 0 to 4 here. So with a histogram, since the categories are like ranging from one number to the next, they're all kind of touching and flowing together. Okay, I really like that. Okay, now the question, so we just did B. Question C asks us to describe the center. So I'm going to show you using the histogram how I would calculate the center. Didn't mean to do that. Pen mode, Mrs. Kramer. I would cross off 1 from each side until I got to the center. Okay, and the center appears to be in this column right here. So the 40 to 44 column is our center of data. And the shape, I don't know if I would categorize it any of the 3 shapes that you learned. Okay, the 3 shapes that you learned in class, if I can get there for you, are these. This is symmetrical. One side matches the other. Okay? With this graph, they called this skewed right because your tail is going off to the right of your data. Okay? So that's skewed right because of your long tail to the right. This one is skewed left because you have a very long tail skewing to the left. Okay? So I don't know if I would use any of the 3 of these to categorize my data from what we've been talking about. So if you had to pick one of the 3, I would pick symmetrical, but I really don't think any of the 3 that we've been studying match this. Okay? Question D asks you to add another column. So let's go up. Okay, let's add another column to this frequency table. Let's add relative frequency. Now the column 1, 2, 4, 0, 7, 3, 2, 0, 0, 1, we have to total this first in order to find a relative frequency. I believe it's 20. 1, 2, 3, 7, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20 is correct. 20 is our total. Okay, so I'm going to do the first relative frequency with you. Maybe I'll do the first 2, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video. Try some of these on your own. Okay, the first relative frequency is 1/20th. As a decimal, take that calculator out. 1 divided by 20, that is 0.05 or 5% as a relative frequency. The next one is 2/20ths, which scales down to 1/10, which would be 0.1 as a decimal. I'm going to add a 0 because I like that it would be in the hundredths place because hundredths are easily converted or seen as percentages. This would be 10/100ths or 10%. Now the cool thing about this, if you were mathematically thinking and kind of being a problem solver, you could look down your list. Okay, we have these with no votes, so that's obviously 0% or 0 relative frequency. So those ones are already tackled for you. Now you already have 1 and 2 completed. Well, here's another 1, so you can just copy the relative frequency from the one that we already did. And there's another 2. Ooh, I love how math works in my favor most of the time. Okay, now we have to just do these 3 left. Okay, so pause your video, see if you can get these 3 correct. When you think you have them complete, hit play and see if they match mine. So the 3 I had you work on for 4 as a frequency would be 4 out of a total of 20. This is 0.20 or 20%. This next one, sorry about that, would be 7 over 20 or 0.35 or 35%. And a frequency of 3 would give you a relative frequency of 3/20ths or 0.15 or 15%. Now you're probably wondering, why you would ever use relative frequency. And the last question on your packet really answers it. What percent of the ages are between 35 and 39? Okay, and you look here, 0% are from 35 to 39. Okay, that's interesting data. Okay, and you can really say a majority of the ages of the Coda Middle School are less than, let's say, less than 45. Because if you add these frequencies, 10 plus 5 is 15, 35, 35 plus 35 is 70%. 70% of the teachers in Coda Middle School are less than 45 years old. In reverse of that, 30% of the Coda Middle School teachers are greater than 45. So just some interesting data. That was a basic summary of lessons 1 through 5. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're watching this with Educanon, I hope you did great on the questions. Thanks for watching.